Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Roeland. I have been active in the Plone community for a little while, mainly on documentation, on accessibility, and also in the board of the Plone Foundation. But that's not all that I do. I have a day job. Some of you may not believe it, but I do actually have a day job. And I also have a hobby. And one of my biggest hobbies, and certainly the most time-consuming, is organizing a yearly film festival, which I have been part of ever since it began. That film festival is what I'm going to speak about today. I'm also going to tell about how Plone helps that film festival. The festival is called the Roze Filmdagen. It is Amsterdam's longest running LGBTQ plus film festival. It started in 1994 already. And this year, under the current strange pandemic conditions, we've had our first fully virtual one, which was sort of nice, but also sort of strange. But still, we managed to stay alive. We managed to keep people interested. And we managed to show movies to people, which is what it's all about. This was the 24th edition already of this film festival. So next year we're hoping to go big and real live again for our 25th anniversary. But yeah, let's first see how we did things this year and how Plone helps a film festival. I'm going to warn you, this is not going to be extremely technical because what I wanted to show is how basically everything that we use to get a successful film festival website is mainly using bog standard Plone, but very few add-ons, with just using the things that are out of the box, using some add-ons, using some integrations with other software. But mainly, I want to emphasize that Plone out of the box comes already with so many tools that really help even smaller sites. This site is, it's small. It does, of course, have a lot of film screenings every year, but it's not huge. But Plone actually works really well for these kinds of use cases as well. We use it on quite a small virtual server. It has absolutely no budget. It has absolutely very little time spent on it. And it works, and people appreciate the website. We do customer surveys every year, and our audience is really happy about the website. They can find things. They're quite happy about it. So what do we do? Well, here you see our website. This is the front page. This was, of course, the online edition. Unfortunately, the year before, we actually had no edition. Well, we had one later in the year because we were supposed to open on the 13th of March 2020. And the Dutch government shut everything down on the 13th of March 2020. So literally on the day we were opening, we had bottles of champagne lined up, lots of food, finger food, guests coming over. And then we had to shut everything down, which was, quite shocking, quite annoying. We had guests that couldn't go back to Puerto Rico and Bolivia for months because everything was closed down. We did manage to get rid of the champagne, obviously. We drank it all. But it was sort of a shocker. We were afraid that we would probably not survive, but thanks to some generous subsidies and generous policies from our sponsors, we did survive. We did even manage to hold the festival in summer when things were a bit more relaxed here. But this year, it was quite obvious that we needed to go online. So this is a basic Plone site. Basically, the add-ons that we have here are very simple. It's Mosaic. I love Mosaic. Mosaic, for those who don't know, is basically, it allows you to have blocks, various blocks, so you can make slightly more complicated landing pages. And we use something called, I'll put it here in action, we use something called an isotope view, which basically makes nice self-organizing lists of content items. So if we go to the program, you will see all our programming. It's a very long list. But let's say you are not interested in everything. You might just want to be interested in the shorts. And then you click on here, and then you just have all our shorts programs. Or you could say, no, I'm a big feature film fan. Give me all the features. And then you might be interested in, let's say, you're like, well, still too much, can't make up my mind. I want to have all the lesbian-themed features. Well, you click on it, and there you have all the showings of all the lesbian-themed feature films. So it makes it very easy for people to slice and dice. What we also do is, yeah, let's go back to everything. One of the most useful features for a film festival and for any organization that deals with timed events is Plone's built-in support of the Ical format. You just have a link, which is bog standard in Plone. You click on it, and it gives you a calendar feed of all showings, of all film showings. And people can import that in their Google Calendar or in their Outlook or in their whatever they're using. And people really like that. It's being used quite a bit. But what many people don't know is that you can actually also import Ical files. And that for a film festival is extremely useful. Because unfortunately, for a website, for a film festival, and especially an online film festival, you cannot just put your festival or your screenings, which is the most important part, arguably, of our website. You can't just put it online in one place. There are several places where you need to basically replicate the same information, or more or less the same information, and at least the timing and dates and the titles. One of these is the ticketing system, which I'll come back to a bit later, because Plone does not come with a built-in ticketing system. You need to have a ticketing system to sell tickets for film festivals, and that also comes with various requirements. Such as it needs integration with a payment provider, and well, there's lots of things there. But yeah, it also needs those same dates and times. And then you also need a media distributor. We partnered with Cinecent, which is one of the biggest names in the film industry. They're Canadian, they're proprietary, but they're really good. And you need to go with a proprietary film distributor or streaming provider, because you cannot just screen films everywhere. You have to do geo blocking. That is something that film distributors require of you. You cannot say, oh, everybody in the whole world can now watch my films, because the film distributors will just say, nope, not happening. For each country, they have different distribution deals. So you need to do things like geo blocking. You need also to have limits, which, yeah, for reasons unknown, you also, even though we were completely online, you do not get unlimited screenings. We actually had to set limits per film. A film distributor will say, well, you can sell 500 tickets for this film, but no more. Or 300 or 200. That depends what kind of deal you strike. So, and that has to be checked. So therefore, there needs to be DRM in place. There needs to be lots of things in place. So you need to partner with a streaming provider that can guarantee all that, and that makes the film distributors happy. So Cinecent provided that. But Cinecent doesn't provide a ticketing system. So we had to either hire one, which costs quite a lot of money, or you can rely on open source, which is what we did. We actually found a really nice one, which is called Pretix, which is based on Django. It's fully open source. So you can host it yourself, you can make it whatever you want, and you can link that up. Well, we actually had the link to Cinecent programmed by the people of Pretix and open sourced that thing that we funded, so that now other film festivals can use it as well. But Pretix is really nice. You could also sell things for conferences, for theaters, for everything. It's a really nice piece of software. But yeah, as said, those three things all need the same dates and times. And one of the most annoying things about typing in 100 screenings is getting all the dates and times exactly right. So we decided to put them in one of the systems, and we chose one that could export it. We originally put all the dates into Cinecent, because yeah, that was the earliest ones that we had to set up. Then we could export iCal files, and we could import them in Pretix. So we then had all the same events, the same dates and times in Pretix, in the ticketing system, and we could set prices and other things for it in there. And in Plone, you can also import the same thing. So that is really good to get your basis of all your screenings right. And that is really simple. You go to any folder, and under Actions, no, it needs to be in a folder. Let's go to a real folder. This is, yeah, Actions. Yeah, here it's still on. Let's disable it for now, and then we can enable it. I can enable Icalendar import. And if I do that, I can say which type of event it should be imported in. In our case, that would be a screening. I'll get to that a little bit later. And then you can either use the URL, or if you have it as a file, you can just browse and keep it in here. So that is how we imported all of the events that we had. And that gives you a really good start, because then you have the title, you have the dates, which is the most annoying part, all there. And then you, of course, still have to type in the descriptions and trailers and other things. But it means you can be quite sure that all your events in your website, your ticketing system, and in the streaming provider are actually happening at the same time and at the same date, which really helps. So what happens? Yeah, this is screening. So it has some metadata. It says where, when and where it will happen. Well, this was actually our shorts were able to stream on demand during the whole festival, so it doesn't have an exact date. The type, the location, which now, of course, was always online, but normally we use different cinemas. So here it would say Cinema 1, Cinema 2, Cinema 3. what type of audience we expect, and an iCal download for that specific one. How does this work? Well, this is basically a content type, and it's just a direct copy of the event content type. So we have dexterity content types, and you just use, you copy the event, and you say this has become now a screening. And a screening is basically an event where you tack on some extra behavior. You say, I would really like a lead image, because lovely lead images, always handy. And you can define your fields. You can basically use clickety-click for this, but I usually just edit the XML file, because I'm that kind of person. I like to see what I'm doing. So here we added the day in which it would happen, because then you can sort on it. You can add a type. I hope people can see this. I should probably try to. So you can have some extra, you say, what are the types? Feature, short, documentary, special events, or weekend talks. And that's basically it. It is really simple. Oops, am I at, yeah. What more does a film festival need? Well, a film festival, of course, also needs forums. So we use Easy Forum, and we use that mostly to get entries from filmmakers. So that's just every year we put up a forum and say, like, okay, dear directors, this is what you can do. Or send us your material, and we will look at all the films, and we will select the ones that come into. That's handy because you can export it. It's really practical. So, what more can I say? Let me repeat again that iCal import is super handy for a film festival. What is also handy is this isotope view, because you can use it not only for screenings. You could also make sure that your listing of news items looks a little bit less boring. And as said, this is all done. Basically, I make these websites on my own in one weekend. So with 140 films, with all the news, it takes me about 2, admittedly quite long days, but that's all it takes, which if I listen to my colleague, filmmaker, film festival organizers, is actually quite a good going. They usually struggle quite a bit to get their websites up. So yeah, I would say that's a big win. Because yeah, Plone makes a lot of things easy. It has the tags, it has basically everything that you want right out of the box. And it comes with some handy tools to keep things organized. If you want to move things around, it still finds them. All your URLs are quite logical. So if you go to a certain day, the URL actually makes sense. It says Roze Filmdagen program and then the date. So also the URLs that you communicate on Twitter or elsewhere make sense. They're not something weird. Yeah, what more can I say? You can add extra. So here we built a little integration so that people indeed go directly to the ticketing system and buy their tickets directly. Well, you can't buy them anymore because obviously the festival has passed. But that was just an extra field on that event type screening where it says, give me the direct link to the ticketing system, which we already had imported from their iCal feed. So I didn't need to type that all in again. So it automates a lot of the annoying stuff and keeps you free to do the nice stuff. So now, shockingly, I have to admit that this was all built in Plone 5.2 because, well, we needed some of the older stuff and we didn't feel quite ready yet. Also because, well, the pandemic year has been quite busy for me. We didn't feel quite ready yet to start experimenting with the new front end photo, which will become the default in Plone 6. But I am actually now looking very much forward to that. Some things will change, so I'll have to learn. And I think everybody will have to learn what will be needed for me to make the jump to Plone 6 fully is that we need to have forums. Something like easy form, something like, well, whatever, a kind of form so that directors can submit information to us. And we also need forms in a few other places where people order t-shirts and other stuff. So forms, that's a necessity for us. And I think for a lot of sites, you need to have some kind of form. Don't care what it's called, but we're going to need that. Blocks, of course, are already there. We definitely need some kind of full embed block where I can embed raw HTML because, well, everything needs a trailer. Otherwise, we just need to embed raw HTML. That's something that we absolutely need. But then blocks are basically what Mosaic is doing now. I do still need to look into if we can find some way to have this behavior of isotope replicated. I'm sure that the EEA people will come up with something like faceted navigation, but isotope was a little bit simpler. So maybe, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there will be some React thingy that does that says, okay, give me only the films on this day, and then it just sorts those out. And what I, of course, because Plone 6, even though the front end might be new and shiny, the back end is still going to be reliable, trusty old Plone, which means hopefully I can still import and export my Icalendar files. And I hope I have conveyed to you now enough that for iCal is actually a super useful format if you do events. It's both the export, which you do for your customers, for your audience, but the import is what keeps you sane during setting up all those events. You have one source of truth, which has the dates, and you import it into all of the other software stacks that are necessary to keep a film festival rolling. And then you know that the dates will actually be the same, which, funnily enough, is one of the most difficult things to do. If you type 140 different events into 3 different systems, you're going to make mistakes. So if you only do it in one, it's already hard enough to get it right, and you need someone else to check it. If you do it in 3, you just multiply your chances of making mistakes. And with Plone, I don't have to because it just imports it for me and then lays out the structure. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also really looking forward to having a proper film festival again, because this year, yes, as said, we had many guests who were happy. We had over 12,000 people attending or seeing a movie from their home, but it's not quite the same as actually seeing them in the cinema and laughing and crying and joking and talking about the movies afterwards. And so for our 25th anniversary next year, I sincerely hope that we will be able to have a real film festival with real people in a real cinema again. We will probably keep some of the online component as well, because it did allow a lot of people outside of Amsterdam or the vicinity to attend. But yeah, it's going to be complicated with securing the rights. But yeah, cinema festivals, they do rely on guests, on interaction, on directors being there, on the whole liveliness that comes with it. So hopefully next year, if you're in Amsterdam next year, let me get the dates right. Yes, March 10 to 20th of 2022. I sincerely hope that I may welcome you into what has been my longest running hobby, supported by Plone, which is organizing this Amsterdam LGBTQ Film Festival. Yeah, so if you're around next year, please drop by and see some awesome movies and have some really nice discussions and book them through a Plone site. Thank you.